Here in this renaissance of Atari 2600 games, in the wake of the release of the 2600 Plus, prices for these decades-old cartridges continue to climb. So it's even more important now to know the caliber of the game inside these increasingly expensive little plastic boxes. In this video, I'm going to rank every title published by third-party developer US Games, and we're going to get started right after this. This video supported in part by...
Playing VR, I tend to sweat. It gives me an edge. So King of Nerds happens to give me an edge too. Let King of Nerds give you the edge. Bye, King of Nerds.
Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John, and I am a GenXGrownUp. Thank you for clicking on this video. US Games Corporation originally produced handheld electronic sports games, but pivoted to focus exclusively on video game software in 1981, and was acquired by cereal company Quaker Oats in 1982 to develop games for the Atari 2600. Some of their early titles bear the name Vidtec, but that was soon dropped, and all remaining releases have the US Games branding. During their short run, which lasted just over a year, US Games published 14 games for our beloved VCS. Now, as usual, I'm trying to evaluate these games not from today's perspective, but from that of 12-year-old little Johnny, the 12-year-old me. How would he have ranked these games after begging his parents for the purchase and then tearing off the cellophane and throwing that cartridge in the console? So, going in alphabetical order, let's get started with Commando Raid. In Commando Raid, android commando raiders, appropriately enough, are being dropped from choppers toward your cities, and you must shoot them down from your single central gun emplacement. At first glance, I thought, oh, this is Missile Command crossed with Atlantis. But it doesn't just stop there. If you allow 3 paratroopers to make it to a city, it's destroyed, and then further paratroopers landing there will dig underground toward your gun. If they make it to the center, they'll plant an explosive and end your game. Plus, there's a bomber that comes by occasionally, and if his blockbuster reaches the ground, it's game over too. Commando Raid progresses through 8 levels of difficulty, and you can customize your game by turning on auto-fire with the TV type switch and adjusting other aspects with the other 2 difficulty switches. All this, plus a nicely graduated backdrop and smooth controls, yeah, Commando Raid will get us started with a solid A on the tier. Moving on next to Eggomania. Look, if you like Activision's Kaboom, then Eggomania should be on your playlist too. The description from the manual reads, a strangely colored feathered fowl is bent on bombing your bedeviled blue bear with dozens of even stranger colored eggs. And that's it too. As in Kaboom, you use your paddle controller to catch the eggs. If you miss an egg, all those in flight make it to the ground and your blue bear starts to wade through a puddle of slimy yolks and albumin. The game ends when the puddle of egg goop reaches your bear's head and he, drowns, I guess? Oh, but for each level you finish, you get the chance to shoot back at the bird. Nail him with an egg for bonus points, and some of that egg puddle gets cleaned up. It's good Atari fun with a paddle controller and also earns itself an A on my tier. Next up, it's Entombed. In Entombed, you and your team of archaeologists have fallen into the catacombs of zombies. Essentially, you must work your way down through a scrolling maze while avoiding zombies who can sometimes change color and pass through walls. You've got a trick up your sleeve though. Using what the game calls make breaks, you can change the maze by opening or closing walls anywhere you choose. Additional make breaks can be picked up as you play, and once you complete a maze, you're teleported to the next. Entombed does have simultaneous multiplayer, but with wonky get stuck on the walls controls and no diagonal movement, after about the 4th level, you're fighting a losing battle. So Entombed is only going to get a D. Up next, we're headed to the farm for Gopher. In Gopher, gophers have launched a merciless attack on your carrot patch. As they burrow under and around your veggies, you can use your bonker, that's the manual's term, not mine, to bonk the gopher on the head and then fill in the holes he's left behind. If you don't bonk him, he'll steal one of your carrots. Lose all your carrots and the game is over. Plus, a duck will occasionally fly overhead, dropping a carrot seed, which you can catch and replant. The gameplay is pretty repetitive, but the characters and animation give Gopher a lot of charm, so I think I'm going to give it a B. Next up is M.A.D. M.A.D, or M.A.D, stands for Missile Attack and Defense. Though when I was a kid hiding under my desk for bomb drills, it meant mutually assured destruction. maybe that was just too dark for an Atari game. Anyhow, the goal is to defend your 6 energy stations from dive-bombing kamikaze aircraft by shooting them down with your photon cannon. Not a bad idea for a twist on the Missile Command model, except that aiming with your cannon feels imprecise, and so you never really feel like you're in control of where you're shooting. On the plus side, you can play head-to-head competitively, where player 2 chooses which aircraft will dive on you next, but even that isn't going to save this one from getting a D. So let's move along then to Name This Game. Name This Game has an interesting story. Briefly, it was initially developed as a Jaws game for Parker Brothers, but they lost the license and the author then shopped it around. US Games picked it up and there was a contest to name this game for $10,000. However, before the contest concluded, US Games closed up shop and it never got a proper official name. Which is unfortunate because it's kind of cool. You're this little diver on the ocean floor protecting sunken treasure from a shark who, I don't know, wants to eat the treasure or something. You can shoot the shark, sending him back to the top of the screen, but the lower he is when you shoot him, the more points you get. Plus, there's a wonderfully realized octopus reaching his tentacles down to get you, and all along the way you have to manage your oxygen and refill it from the O2 hose your buddy in the boat above keeps dropping down. It may have a silly name and feature questionable shark motives, but it's kind of fun, and I'm gonna give it a B. Up next, it's Picnic. Picnic is another paddle game, this time with a weird set of rules that's worth playing at least once. Just as you're ready to sit down for a juicy cheeseburger picnic, cheeseburger picnic? I don't know. A swarm of nasty bugs comes along, intent on beating you to the munch. Yeah, I know, bad pun. I got it from the instructions. You have 2 cheeseburgers and a bug trap in the middle. The bugs will shoot at your burgers with their needle-like proboscis, nibbling away at the layers. You must position your swatter to intercept their needle nose and hit the button to swat the bug. This sends it flying around the screen, and maybe, if you're lucky, it'll land in the bug trap for extra points. At the end of each level is a super bug that's bigger and worth more points, but otherwise, not much more challenging. It's a good idea, but since there's no way to rebuild your damaged burgers, you never really feel like you have a fighting chance. Still, it's interesting, and I'm going to give it a C. Here at the halfway point, I'm going to take just a moment, of course, to remind you that if you're on the lookout for graphic tees, mugs, decals, or phone cases featuring great, original, nerdy designs, our merch store is the perfect place. When you click over to GenXGrownUp.com/merch, you'll find designs from all corners of pop culture, printed on quality products and delivered right to your door. And each purchase also goes to fund the next video just like this one. With that business out of the way, let's move right along to our next title, Piece O' Cake. In Piece of Cake, it's your first day on the job as a baker, or maybe you're just a baker's assistant. At any rate, you're not really cooking anything, but rather throwing completed cake layers at a dish, trying to construct cakes that qualify as valid cakes. In order to be a proper cake, you can only place smaller pieces atop larger ones, and you absolutely must top each one with a cherry. In fact, just a plate with a cherry on it counts, though not for very many points. You move your admittedly well-rendered chef left and right with a paddle and throw cake layers with a fire button, but it never gets any more interesting, only faster. Piece of Cake feels more like a bonus mini-game from a larger cooking game, rather than being its own thing, and I'm gonna give it a D. Up next, it's Raft Rider. Ah, Raft Rider. You play as a little guy with a top hat, making your way downstream by steering your log raft and avoiding obstacles like rocks, moose, and trees, and collecting gold nuggets. The visual design is not so bad for a VCS game, but a bit weak for a 1982 VCS game. And the controls are what I will generously call unorthodox. Since you're Tom Sawyering your way down the river steering with a pole, you must hold in the direction you want to go, then release the button to actually start moving. That means you've really got to plan your path well ahead of time, and last second or quick adjustments to your path are all but impossible. And then there are the gold nuggets, which, if you don't touch them perfectly with your pole out in front of the raft, will wreck you just like any other obstacle. Raft Rider gets points for originality, but it's more work than it is fun, so it's going to get a D from me. Moving on then to Sneak and Peek. Oh, Sneak and Peek is an electronic version of hide and seek, where in a 2-player game, you take turns hiding in one of 20 predetermined locations around the house and then seeking your opponent. In the 1-player version, you just try to find where the computer is hiding. But it's not just a matter of exploration. You have to learn each of the various hiding places and the secret button and stick combo to hide or seek in that spot. All of this tedium is done with an infinite loop of Camp Town races and other songs playing in the background, and that's it. Look, I try to give every game a fair shake, but I read the whole manual and played this for, no exaggeration, 45 minutes and never was able to figure out where the computer was hiding. Not once. And even if I had, my only reward would have been value on the timer and an opportunity to start again. No. F. Next. And next up is Space Jockey. Space Jockey was the very first title US Games ever released, and it was under that Vidtec banner. It was also Gary Kitchen's first game ever written for the VCS. It's not the most creative game on the system, but for a first outing, there's a lot going on. This is a side-scrolling shooter, pure and simple. You pilot an attack saucer trying to blast a variety of enemy vehicles and obstacles with your bullets while avoiding collisions and alien fire. For most games, well, that would be it, but Space Jockey has 16 different single-player variations that keep this otherwise simple game fresh on each play. You can choose from guided missiles, horizontal movement, collisions, and enemy attack patterns, plus the 2 difficulty switches control enemy speed and fire frequency. Also, worth noting, nothing is a single color. Gary used display timing to render all objects with multiple shades and gradients. Not all that common for VCS games. With all that variety, it's no surprise that Gary Kitchen went on to create some of the best games on the VCS, like Keystone Capers for Activision, so I'm going to give his first effort a solid C. The next game we're going to look at is Squeezebox. Now, Squeezebox is not an accordion simulator as the name might suggest, but instead the ultimate escape game where you play a pistol-packing jailbird trying to shoot his way out of jail while blasting away at bricks in the wall. Kind of the anti-Pink Floyd. I don't know why I've never heard of this game before, because it's got so much going for it. Your jailbird character is huge and detailed, the sound and music is fun, and the game variations are way more than just modifiers, but very different challenges. You can blast at the walls closing from both sides to escape to the next room, or walls come from just the left while you try to shoot them back until they turn white, or a combo of the two where the right wall is also gradually closing in, and finally, all 3 of those variations have another variation where the resolution is increased and you have double the walls to shoot. And while I haven't gotten there, the manual suggests there's even a conclusion with the hottest finish you've ever encountered in a video game. Whew, okay, calm down, Squeezebox, I'm already a fan. The difficulty ramps up a bit too unfairly for my taste, but I'm still gonna give Squeezebox an A. Next up, it's Towering Inferno. In Towering Inferno, your goal is to rescue as many people as possible from a burning building, going floor by floor, fighting flames, and picking up trapped residents, then making your way back to the exit. At the end of each level, your helicopter lands on the ground and releases the people you have saved. Now here's the ominous part. Each floor has 4 people trapped, and the longer it takes to navigate the floor, the fewer survivors you'll be able to save. The graphics are pretty chonky and rudimentary, but I don't know what it is about firefighting games, I just like them. I had a soft spot for a Magic's Firefighter, and I really kind of like this one too. There are 9 buildings to complete in order to finish the game, though I've never done it, but I'm going to keep trying because Towering Inferno earns a B on my tier. Next up and last on our list, it's Word Zapper. Now, Word Zapper must be played to be believed. With word in the title, you might think this is some boring educational game. And that might have worked for your mom when you put it on your Christmas list, but that's not what it is at all. At the beginning of each wave, you are given a word or string of random letters to match, depending upon your game option. You then pilot your rotary wing Word Zapper to shoot letters scrolling across the top of the screen, all while avoiding pesky asteroids. What kind of asteroids? I'm glad you asked. There's the Doomsday asteroid, which kills you, the Scroller asteroid that scrambles the letters, and then Bonker and Zonker asteroids that nudge your ship off course. You're given 99 seconds to successfully complete 3 words, and then the game ends. Using a combination of game select and difficulty switches, Word Zapper can go from mindless letter-matching fun to frenetic mind-bending chaos in a hurry. I actually enjoyed playing a few slow games and spelling words like space, meteor, and moon, but on higher levels, when things are zipping around the screen and I'm trying to remember a random string of letters, it can be headache-inducing. Again, it's worth trying at least once, but that might be it, and Word Zapper is gonna get a D. Okay, that's all 14, and here's our completed tier. Only one real stinker in the bunch, and the rest are entirely playable, if not particularly memorable. My biggest takeaway, and something you probably already noticed, is no S-tier games for me, and that aligns with the history of the company. US Games titles sold poorly, and Quaker closed the division during the North American video game crash of 1983. Spokesman Ronald Bottrell was quoted as saying, "None of our games became a hit. Instead of pouring in a lot more capital, we decided to drop it." And that was both the end of US Games and the end of this video. Now, I will of course place links over my shoulders here and here to previous ranking tier videos that I have done. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy in this video, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.